Tonight, health officials say they're being extra cautious as they deal with the first confirmed cases of the coronavirus in Toronto.
Ontario now has 2 cases. We also have 19 persons under investigation for whom results are pending.
How the city is responding to the disease and a reality check on misinformation spreading on social media. Plus, get ready for not 1 but 2 teacher strikes at elementary schools next week as unions continue to escalate their actions against the province. And
I would like to see protected bike lanes, because it makes everybody safer.
The number one problem that's always been here for the last maybe 25 years is parking.
what might bike lanes along the Danforth mean for shops and restaurants in Greektown? Good evening, I'm Mike Wise. Confirmation tonight that a husband and wife are believed to be the first 2 cases of coronavirus in Toronto. The couple both returned from Wuhan, China last week. The man is recovering in hospital. The woman is at home in self-isolation. But health officials say they are waiting on test results to determine if there are additional cases. Our Queen's Park reporter Mike Crawley has the details.
A Lunar New Year celebration at City Hall. Questions swirl about the spread of novel coronavirus to Toronto. The mayor expresses confidence in the public health system.
While they're testing some individuals, that there is nothing for people to worry about.
That testing happens here at Ontario's Public Health Laboratory. Scientists are now investigating 19 people in this province for possible coronavirus infection. What they all have in common?
Symptoms, fever, cough, and so on, and have traveled to Wuhan or surrounding areas.
Officials say the vast majority of the 19 are in hospital and in isolation. Still, it's not certain that any actually have the new virus.
If I were to predict, probably they'll all have something else, influenza, respiratory syncytial virus, something else. But we're being extra cautious.
Canada's first positive case was found on Saturday, a man in his 50s who returned to Toronto from a trip to Wuhan last week. His wife traveled with him. She's now tested positive too. Despite that, she remains at home and is not showing symptoms. Officials say the pair were screened on arrival at Pearson Airport and mentioned their travel history, but neither had symptoms that warranted intervention.
There's no perfect screening system in an airport.
Toronto Public Health has contacted a few passengers who sat near the couple on their flight from China last week. As for the hundreds of others on board,
continue about their regular business. Should they develop signs and symptoms, we are asking them to contact their local public health unit.
The head of the Registered Nurses Association thinks all the passengers should be traced.
Our concern that on a plane, people don't stay sitting all the time. They may be walking around and coughing. They use the same washrooms.
Meanwhile, all 911 centers in Ontario have enhanced their screening of calls so that paramedics can be warned if patients may have been exposed to coronavirus. As anxiety grows, politicians keep trying to quell fears.
I think that is the primary message that I want to give Canadians. The risk of contracting coronavirus is low.
A positive test conducted here in Ontario is only considered officially confirmed when the National Microbiology Lab in Winnipeg does a second test. But that can take up to 48 hours, and so public health officials here act immediately because they believe that their tests are going to be confirmed as positive, and they know that acting quickly is key. Mike Crawley, CBC News, Toronto.
Now, a lot of people are looking for answers about coronavirus, but not every source they're consulting can be trusted. There is a lot of misinformation out there, especially on social media. Ali Chasson has some advice for sorting out fact from fiction.
As disease spreads, so does misinformation, especially online. From rumors that the coronavirus can be cured with nicotine, or maybe a vial of this vaccine. The amount of unverified content out there is stoking people's fears, and it's not just happening on social media. Posters like these appeared on campus at McMaster University, saying that someone was being quarantined in residence. That turned out to be a prank. McMaster sent out a damage-control tweet saying there is no cause for concern. And what about these unverified TikTok videos of people just keeling over?
TikTok, wonderful for animal videos, not as good for, I don't get a lot of my infectious disease information from TikTok.
Dr. Michael Gardam is doing a lot of myth-busting these days. Those cure rumors?
Yeah, vaccine's years away.
What about the 8,000 people who signed a petition asking that York Region schools quarantine children who've been to China?
You know, we have 2 known cases in Canada, and they're not out in your schools.
Are we overreacting?
Like I said, we'll find out in retrospect. All you can really do is consistently be out there and tell people what the reality is at that moment, and also let them know that things could change. There's just a lot of concern that maybe we're missing something, maybe there's transmission going on that we don't know about, et cetera, et cetera. The problem is that you can't investigate things to that degree. There's a limit to what the system could possibly do, right? We can't screen everybody who goes to school or screen everybody who takes the subway.
Gardam says for the most accurate information, people should pay attention to the local health official updates. To understand how the coronavirus is manifesting globally, read the latest from the World Health Organization. Don't just believe what you see on social media. Ali Chiasson, CBC News, Toronto.
Ottawa is now telling Canadians to avoid all travel to Hubei province. That's the area in China with the most cases of the coronavirus. The death toll in China now stands at 106 people with over 4,100 confirmed cases. The Chinese government says it is still confident it can control the spread of the virus. It's quarantined entire cities in an effort to contain the illness. And remember, you can always find the very latest on the coronavirus at home and around the world. Just head to cbc.ca/Toronto or download the CBC News app. Well, parents of elementary students may have to make plans to cope with 2 days of teacher strikes next week. The Elementary Teachers Union plans to hold a province-wide strike next Thursday. That's February 6th. Now, in addition, there are several local strikes targeting a number of school boards on Friday, February 7th. Now, that list includes school boards in Toronto, York Region, Hamilton, and Niagara. In fact, teachers in Hamilton are also walking off the job this Friday, along with colleagues in the Peel Board. The union says, though, it will cancel next week's strikes if it can reach a deal with the province by the end of the week. But at this point, the two sides don't even have talks scheduled. Well, tenants at 2 Toronto apartment buildings say they've endured months, and in one case, years, without full central heating. They have the same landlord, and the problem started after he took over their buildings. Farah Morali has more.
This is Kelly Goldfeder's routine every time she comes home.
So when I come in here, it's freezing cold. So as soon as I turn on my heater, I just move it.
It's now her 3rd winter in this Parkdale apartment without full central heating.
And how cold does it actually get when there's no heaters in the winter?
Sometimes you can really see your breath. It's so cold. It goes down to like 12 to 13 degrees in here, and I have to have like 4 of the portable units on at all times.
Goldfeder says the problem started in 2017 when her landlord took over the building and started renovations. She says central heating was shut off. Then he sent her an eviction notice claiming her unit needed repairs.
All the other new tenants in here pay double or triple the price that I'm paying in my rent. So yeah, I'm sure it'd be easiest to just move out for him. Like he's definitely freezing me out so I can leave.
Just a few kilometers east, a strikingly similar story in a different building owned by the same landlord.
It's just like uncomfortable to live like around, let's say, 15-ish, 14-ish, and then you get out of the shower and then it's kind of cold.
Shim Khan has lived in this Queen West apartment for 5 years. When the landlord took over this building in 2018, central heating was also turned off. And then came the eviction letter, this time with the landlord arguing he wants to move in.
I wasn't expecting things like that, especially living for that long time here.
CBC Toronto obtained property and business records that show Pavel Kanagarathai, the landlord, has companies that own 12 buildings in the city. Each include rental units and a Domino's Pizza franchise.
Hello?
Hi, is this Pavel?
We reached out to Kanagarathai for an interview. He didn't want to speak to us on camera or answer any questions.
We were just hoping you could answer some questions for us right now. Can you tell us why you're evicting the tenants at 410 Queen West?
He later sent us a statement that reads in part, "I do not wish to litigate in the press or comment on matters that are before the courts. However, the statements are either outright false or otherwise colored to disguise the truth of the matter." Can got his heating back a few months ago, and his eviction was overturned. But Kanagaratay is appealing that in court. As for Goldfeder, she says she's staying put and fighting her eviction too.
I definitely want accountability for my landlord because I think this is like disgusting behavior from human to human.
Farah Morali, CBC News, Toronto.
Nick Cernkovich is here with his first look at the forecast. Got another relatively mild winter day ahead of us tomorrow.
Yeah, we do, Mike, and in fact, that's on the heels of rainfall that was in excess of 25, even 30 millimeters of rain Friday into Saturday. So lots of rainfall, more spring-like weather. We're starting to get back into the more sort of seasonal winter-like weather. With that, though, we're still generally above seasonal. Slick roads, though, for tomorrow morning. We do make a return to sunshine under high pressure by midweek. That, however, will come with some cooler temperatures. We'll get to that in your long-range forecast for tonight, though. Watch for some snow flurries that are coming off of Lake Huron and Georgian Bay. That's what could slick up the roads for tomorrow morning. Generally speaking, though, temperatures still above seasonal. -3 degrees tonight, feels like -7, +1 for tomorrow afternoon. But the temperatures are dropping at least a little bit. We'll full details in just a bit.
Okay, thanks, Nick.
You bet.
A huge turnout tonight for a meeting looking at the future of the Danforth. Now, the city is in the middle of a major study looking how to improve the area, from more parking to higher density. But as Angelina King tells us, one of the most contentious issues was bike lanes.
Astoria Restaurant has been on the Danforth for 42 years, but General Manager Angelo Kudis says business isn't what it used to be. He'd like to see higher density development bring more people to the neighborhood, but first...
The number one problem that's always been here for the last maybe 25 years is parking.
He's afraid it'll get even worse if bike lanes are installed on Danforth Avenue. Howard Cohen says when he's biking, he avoids that street.
It's busy. It's terribly busy. And motorists, I find, aren't looking out. They go pretty fast along here.
While Cohen doesn't think bike lanes will benefit the neighborhood, this transportation policy analyst says they end up bringing more business to a community.
We think a bike lane is completely consistent with a healthy environment for business.
That issue is just one part of the city's three-part Danforth study. The complete street study looks at safer streets and potentially adding protected bike lanes along a 6-kilometer stretch. The economic and retail study looks at ways to improve business, and the planning study is focusing on growth and development.
The public realm could be quite different. There could be 8- and 9-story buildings, very European feel.
And this is a part of the city that hasn't had a lot of change historically, so these are important conversations to have.
And that's what tonight is all about. Hundreds of people have come through the open house to learn more about the study and share their opinions on what they don't want to see or want to see along the Danforth.
I'd like to see a limitation on height for buildings.
I would like to see protected bike lanes, because it makes everybody safer.
Fewer empty storefronts, if they could figure out a way to help businesses thrive.
All that feedback will be presented at another meeting this spring. Angelina King, CBC News, Toronto.
It's about looking by division, tailoring the schedule and the start times to what makes the most sense there.
A shakeup at Toronto Police. For the first time in more than 3 decades, the service is changing the way officers are scheduled. Could make a big difference in your neighborhood. We'll tell you how after the break. Today marks the 75th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz, and to commemorate that, the Toronto District School Board gave thousands of grade 6 students a book to learn more about the Holocaust.
It's incredibly important to learn about the Holocaust because, of course, it's events that took place so long ago and we haven't learned enough about it because obviously the same or similar genocides and atrocities are taking place all around the globe. And it's important to learn specifically about individual stories because it helps us understand our joint humanity.
Hannah's suitcase follows a Japanese curator in her quest to learn about the girl who owned a suitcase she received. It was owned by an 8-year-old named Hannah Brady. She was taken to Auschwitz where she was killed. Now, the book follows her journey, something that her family thinks is important to share.
This initiative sees over 17,000 kids across Toronto reading it. And so the wave of interest and, of course, questions that we've been getting has been amazing. And the book is a really accessible way to learn about Hannah's story, about George's story, and, of course, about Fumiko Ishioka, who is not a Jew and is someone who, on the other side of the globe, decided to learn about the story and what lessons it had to teach.
Indigo and Second Story Press sponsored the event. More than 300 Toronto schools received copies of the book. It's been translated into more than 40 languages and produced as a stage play and is the subject of a prize-winning CBC radio and film documentary. Now, as part of a year-long pilot project, Toronto Police are trying something different when it comes to the way officers are scheduled. It's called modernized shift scheduling, and Toronto Police hope it will allow officers to better serve many parts of our city. Greg Ross tells us how it'll work.
Toronto Police have been scheduled the same way for more than 3 decades.
It's really a flatline deployment.
Old school shift work, but starting today, a new modernized schedule has gone into effect.
It's about looking by division, tailoring the schedule and the start times to what makes the most sense there.
Each division across the city will have a couple of choices. In most cases, officers will work 12-hour shifts, 5 days on and 4 days off, followed by 4 days on and 5 days off. In some divisions, officers will be working 11-hour shifts, 7 days on and 7 days off.
We've heard Chief Saunders say many times that we don't necessarily have a people issue, we have a deployment issue.
They say this will allow them to stagger shifts in a way that will see more officers on during times they are most needed and fewer officers during off-peak times.
It's based on evidence and data.
Mike McCormick is the president of the union that represents police officers and support workers. He says they collaborated on this schedule.
When we look at shift work, there's no such thing as a perfect schedule, but what this meets is the officers' requirements for health, for safety, and also the operational requirements.
But this new schedule isn't being welcomed with open arms by all communities.
You think this might not fly with all community groups?
No, I know it won't fly with all community groups.
Joseph Smith is with the nonprofit group Generation Chosen, which works with at-risk youth in the Jane Finch area. He says this could have a negative impact on his community.
The presence of police officers just generally constantly surveilling the neighborhood, it doesn't bode well with the community residents. It makes them feel uncomfortable, makes them feel like where they're living isn't safe or isn't good, and it honestly makes them feel negative about their own neighborhood.
But police say this new schedule should give officers more time to engage with communities.
30% of your time should be proactive policing, whether that is enforcing the Highway Traffic Act, by getting out of your car, being intelligence-led in our visibility within our communities.
Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.
Well, here's a live look downtown, another mild night. Nick is back after the break with a look at your forecast for the week ahead. Spoiler alert, it's still relatively mild.
The weather update is brought to you by Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand. It's hard to stop a train.
Meteorologist Nick Cernkovich is back with his extended forecast. So the temperature could drop midweek, but relatively speaking, this has been a really mild winter.
Yeah, and when I say drop, Mike, I'm talking about back to sort of seasonal levels. We're not talking about cold weather, but just sort of seasonal temperatures where the average sits. In fact, I'm going to show you that right now. This is a look at your average daytime highs and average overnight lows for Toronto. Minus 2.4 degrees is generally where we sit, and about minus 11 is where we generally sit through the overnight. Take a look at what we had today. Plus 1.1 in the day, but not even below zero last night. Now, this is going to change, though, in the long-range forecast, and we're going to get to that in just a sec. Today, as I mentioned, sitting at 1 degree. That's about as good as we got, but still above seasonal there. Came with some good cloud cover, though, right across the region. That's going to carry on for tomorrow. As I mentioned, though, watch for the risk for a few flurries coming down off of Lake Huron and Georgian Bay. That could slick up the roads for tomorrow morning just a little bit anyway. By tomorrow night, things start to clear out, though, and under clear skies, we're going to start to see temperatures dropping. This with the clear skies and high pressure building, and so colder air moving in across the region. Wednesday morning, look for sunshine, and it'll be a cold start to the day on Wednesday and a seasonal temperature. Daytime high for Wednesday afternoon, but the sunshine is in place for Wednesday and by and large into Thursday as well. So that's a look at your forecast. We'll get to the long range in just a sec. Winds are playing into this a little bit. That northerly wind is what's bringing the flurries off of Lake Huron and Georgian Bay, at least for the north end of the GTA. That'll continue into tomorrow, but by tomorrow afternoon, evening, the winds will slowly start to subside, and that's where we're going to start to see the high pressure moving in and sunshine returning to the GTA. Southwestern Ontario temperatures through the overnight about 1 degree, and tomorrow dropping to 0 degrees there. Generally cloudy skies. We've got a few flurries across the region, but mostly out toward the London area. For the Golden Horseshoe, we're looking at temperatures tonight down around -2, -3 degrees with the chance of a few flurries. Wind chill of about -7. Tomorrow, +1 degree across the region. In long-range forecast, here's what it looks like. Temperatures down to -2 as the coldest on Thursday, but there's those overnight lows, and that's what I was talking about. They're getting closer to the seasonal mark.
Closer to seasonal, but the daytime high is nothing to be worried about there.
No.
Thanks a lot, Nick.
You bet.
Well, the Leafs playing their first game tonight since the NHL All-Star break in Nashville. Toronto strikes first. Rasmus Sandin with a Hail Mary pass to wide-open William Nylander. He nets his 23rd of the year to make it 1-0, but the Predators would tie it with just 40 seconds after that. Mikael Granlund waits out Frederik Andersen. Still in the first, Mitch Marner to Zach Hyman. Watch the shot here from the left. He is there to tuck in his third goal in 5 games as Toronto retakes the lead. They'd build on that in the second. Sandin rifles a loose rebound in for his first career NHL goal. Toronto holds on to win 5-2. And the NBA has postponed tomorrow night's LA Lakers game in the wake of Kobe Bryant's death. His former team was to play the LA Clippers at the Staples Center. The league says the decision was made out of respect for the Lakers organization, which is still grieving. Bryant played his entire 20-year NBA career with the Lakers, winning 5 NBA titles. The game will be made up at a later date. Now stay with us. We'll be right back. You may not know the name Craig Wilson, but for 40 years he's been helping Torontonians as a paramedic. And today he signed off after his final shift.
ARU 8/1, I'm 10-7 at 54 station, signing off for the last time. It's been a pleasure and an honor.
Craig Wilson, ACP, thank you for your 40 years of service. Very few people have accomplished what you have. Attending emergency calls as an ACP up to your retirement. After 40 plus years, it's been an honor. We've got it from here, Craig.
10-4, thank you.
Congratulations, a nice emotional moment there. Well, tomorrow on Metro Morning, they're going to be talking about Prince, most notably the clothes that he wore in the last years of his life. 2 Toronto designers behind a lot of them. And you can hear about that tomorrow around 8:20 on CBC Radio 1. I'll see you back here tomorrow night at 11. Good night.